When we talk about stopping bad habits, we often want a quick fix, a method, a routine, a new motivational quote that will magically erase the behavior. But the truth is, transformation begins much deeper than action. It starts with awareness. You cannot defeat something you refuse to confront. The first and most difficult battle you'll ever fight is not against your habit, but against your own denial. Human beings are experts at justifying what they know is wrong. We rationalize our weaknesses, give them new names, and wrap them in comfort so that we don't have to face their ugliness. We say it's not that bad, or I'll quit when I'm ready. But the longer you protect a bad habit with excuses, the stronger it grows, until one day it begins to define who you are. That's when people say, I can't change, it's just who I am. But that's not true. That's not your identity, that's a story you've told yourself for too long. The Qur'an gives us a profound truth. Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Notice Allah doesn't say change their surroundings or change their circumstances. He says within themselves. The problem and the solution both begin inside. Awareness is that awakening of the soul, that moment when the fog lifts and you finally see the habit for what it truly is. A chain holding you back from the potential Allah created within you. You see, every bad habit is a symptom of something deeper, an internal void, a wound, or an unmet need. Some people overeat not because of hunger, but because of emptiness. Others drown in distraction, not because life is exciting, but because silence feels unbearable. Awareness forces you to look beneath the surface and ask uncomfortable questions. What am I running from? What am I trying to fill? Why am I choosing comfort over growth? Until you face those questions honestly, every attempt to stop will be temporary. Psychologically, awareness is the breaking of the autopilot. Most habits operate subconsciously. You do them without thinking, scrolling endlessly, reacting impulsively, speaking harshly, procrastinating. But when you become aware, you create a gap, a moment between impulse and action where choice exists. That small space is where change is born. It's the difference between being a slave to your behavior and being the master of it. But awareness alone isn't pleasant. It exposes the truth, and truth is rarely comfortable. The ego resists it because awareness shatters illusions. It confronts you with your own contradictions, the distance between who you are and who you claim to be. Yet this discomfort is sacred. It's a sign of life within the soul. Dead hearts don't feel guilt, only the living heart does. When you start feeling uneasy about your bad habits, don't suppress that feeling, honor it. It's Allah calling you back to yourself. Spiritually, awareness is muraqabah, the consciousness that Allah sees you even when no one else does. It's the awareness that every action shapes the soul, that every choice leaves an imprint. When you truly internalize that Allah is watching, not in judgment, but in mercy, guiding, waiting, calling, then awareness turns into accountability. You begin to live deliberately, not passively. You stop asking, what's wrong with this habit? And start asking, what is this habit doing to my heart? This first step, awareness, is not dramatic, but it is revolutionary. It's the moment you stop lying to yourself. You no longer hide behind someday, because you realize someday never comes. You stop blaming others, circumstances, or fate. You look in the mirror and say, the power to change is within me by the permission of Allah. That is the birth of transformation, not the end of struggle, but the beginning of awakening. And so, before you try to break the habit, pause and awaken. See it clearly, feel its weight, understand why it exists. Because when you truly see your chains for what they are, you no longer call them jewelry. Awareness doesn't instantly make you free, but it makes freedom possible. And that single moment of truth is the spark that lights the path to change. Once you've reached the point of awareness, once you've looked your bad habit in the eye and said, I see you for what you are, the next step is not simply to fight it with willpower. Many people think that breaking a habit means resisting it harder, fighting it longer, or suppressing it deeper. But suppression rarely brings freedom, it only builds tension. Real change doesn't happen when you try to erase the old pattern. It happens when you replace it with something better. The human mind cannot exist in emptiness. You cannot simply stop doing something. You have to start doing something else in its place. Every habit, no matter how destructive, serves a psychological purpose. It gives comfort, distraction, or control. The smoker lights up not because of nicotine alone, but because that moment gives him a sense of calm. The procrastinator delays not because of laziness, but because of fear. The fear of failing, or sometimes the fear of succeeding. The one who constantly checks their phone is not addicted to the device. They're addicted to escape. When you understand the hidden need behind your habit, you can begin to redirect that energy. If your habit feeds your anxiety, replace it with something that feeds your peace. If your habit gives you control, find a discipline that gives you mastery instead. In Islam, this process is beautifully expressed in the concept of tazkiyah, purification of the soul. Purification doesn't mean destroying the self, it means refining it. You don't crush your desires, you channel them. You don't erase your impulses, you elevate them. When the Prophet transformed his companions, he didn't simply tell them what not to do. He showed them a higher way to live. He didn't just condemn greed, he cultivated generosity. He didn't just prohibit alcohol, he introduced prayer, clarity, and purpose. This is the secret of transformation, replacement, not resistance. Psychologically, habits are like grooves in the mind. Every time you repeat an action, you deepen that groove, making it easier to fall back into. You can't erase that groove, but you can carve a new one alongside it. And the more you practice the new behavior, the stronger it becomes. Over time, your mind starts to default toward growth instead of decay. This is why patience is so essential. Change is not about dramatic overnight revolutions. It's about small, consistent substitutions that eventually rewire who you are. Spiritually, this principle is echoed in the wisdom of Allah's creation. When something harmful leaves your life, He never leaves you empty. He replaces it with something better, if you allow Him to. When you let go of what harms you, He opens space for what heals you. The problem is, many people try to stop sin without seeking goodness. They quit the habit but fill the silence with emptiness, and emptiness always pulls you back. It's like trying to remove poison from your system without nourishing it afterward. Sooner or later, the weakness returns. So if you want to stop a bad habit, don't ask only, "What must I quit?" Ask, "What will I replace it with?" If you stop wasting time, replace it with learning. If you stop complaining, replace it with gratitude. If you stop gossiping, replace it with silence and reflection. If you stop running from your pain, replace it with prayer and presence. Because if you do not fill the void consciously, life will fill it for you, and it rarely fills it with what uplifts the soul. And remember, transformation is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you were meant to be all along. The process of replacing bad habits is not about losing yourself, it's about rediscovering yourself. It's the slow, deliberate return to the fitra, the pure state that Allah created within you. So the next time you feel tempted to fall back into that old behavior, pause and remind yourself, I'm not depriving myself, I'm upgrading myself. You are not losing comfort, you are gaining control, you are not fighting a habit, you are forming a new identity. Because the truth is, you don't overcome darkness by fighting it. You overcome it by turning on the light. No habit exists in isolation. You cannot nurture a new self while living in the same environment that shaped your old one. The people, spaces, and routines that surround you have a far greater impact on your behavior than most of us care to admit. Many of us fail not because we lack sincerity, but because we underestimate influence. You can have the strongest intentions, but if your environment contradicts your goals, you'll constantly be swimming against the current. Eventually, exhaustion wins. The Prophet, in his divine wisdom, taught us this truth in a simple statement, *, a person is upon the religion of his creatures of imitation. we subconsciously mirror the habits, emotions, and behaviors of those around us. Spend enough time with people who complain, and you'll begin to see the world through the same lens of dissatisfaction. Surround yourself with the undisciplined, and you'll slowly lower your own standards to fit in. But walk with those who strive, those who remember Allah, those who value time and purpose, and your soul begins to rise naturally without even realizing it. Good environments make goodness feel normal. Bad environments make sin feel acceptable. This is why Islam places such importance on community. Salah in congregation, circles of knowledge, gatherings of remembrance. All of these are designed to reshape your inner environment through the outer one. The people around you either amplify your light or dim it. So ask yourself honestly, who are the voices in your life? Do they remind you of Allah or make you forget Him? Do they encourage your growth or indulge your weaknesses? Sometimes the most spiritual act you can perform is to walk away, to distance yourself from circles that keep you trapped in mediocrity, from routines that numb your mind, from places that feed your lower desires. It's not arrogance to protect your spiritual space, it's wisdom. Even the Prophet was commanded to withdraw from those who mocked and rejected truth, and to seek companionship among the sincere. Because your heart is delicate, and exposure determines direction. But changing your environment isn't only about people, it's also about patterns. The spaces you occupy, the times you wake, the routines you follow, all form invisible structures that support your habits. If every night ends with mindless scrolling in bed, then maybe the problem isn't the phone. It's the environment you've created for it. If every gathering revolves around gossip or triviality, maybe the problem isn't just the conversation. It's the space that allows it to thrive. To change your habits, you must re-engineer your surroundings to make the right choice the easy one. Even in nature, we see this truth reflected. A seed planted in fertile soil will flourish effortlessly, while the same seed in barren ground will struggle, no matter how much potential it carries. You are that seed. Your potential is divine, but your environment decides whether it blooms or decays. So, if you are sincere about breaking your bad habits, start with your surroundings. Create a life that supports the version of you that you're trying to become. Find people whose presence reminds you of your higher purpose. Spend time in spaces that elevate your thinking. Fill your days with activities that leave you spiritually nourished, not depleted. Because when your environment changes, your energy changes, and when your energy changes, your habits follow. And remember, you cannot rise while remaining rooted among what keeps you low. At some point, you have to choose comfort or growth, familiarity or freedom. Because the truth is, your environment is not just where you live, it's what you become. Breaking a bad habit is rarely a straight path. You will stumble, you will fall, you will relapse, sometimes in ways that make you question whether change is even possible. And yet, this struggle is not a sign of failure. It is the proof that you are alive, that your soul is still striving, and that the potential for transformation still exists within you. The reality is, the journey of breaking habits is as much spiritual as it is psychological. Without spiritual resilience, even the strongest plans and strategies can collapse under pressure. Spiritual resilience begins with understanding that you are not alone in this fight. Allah is aware of your struggles, even when you are ashamed to face them yourself. He sees your efforts, your slips, your repeated attempts to rise after falling. In fact, the Qur'an repeatedly reminds us that Allah loves those who return to Him, no matter how often they stray. Every time you fall into a habit you are trying to leave behind, it is not the end of your journey. It is an invitation to seek Him, to repent, to realign your intention. Persistence in the face of failure is not weakness. It is strength refined. Psychologically, we are wired to respond to setbacks with shame or guilt, and those emotions can paralyze progress. But if you shift the lens through which you view failure, you see it differently, as data, as feedback, as part of the training of your soul. Every relapse teaches you about triggers, weaknesses, and patterns you were previously unaware of. The difference between those who succeed in breaking habits and those who don't is rarely willpower alone. It is the ability to continue despite setbacks, to fall and rise repeatedly, building spiritual and mental muscles with every attempt. In practical terms, spiritual resilience involves rituals that reconnect you with your higher purpose. Salah, dua, dhikr, and reflection are not just religious routines. They are tools for reprogramming your mind and heart. They remind you that your life is not a series of random impulses, but a deliberate path guided by divine wisdom. When you align your actions with your spiritual purpose, the grip of bad habits loosens. The habit no longer defines you, your intention, guided by Allah, does. This resilience also requires self-compassion. Often, the harshest critic of our own habits is ourselves. We berate, condemn, and shame ourselves into despair. But Islam teaches us a different approach: forgiveness and renewal. You are not failing because you are weak. You are in the process of being refined. Each time you forgive yourself and recommit, you weaken the habit and strengthen your soul. Spiritual resilience is not perfection, it is persistence. Environment, awareness, and replacement strategies are vital, but they are complemented and completed by spiritual endurance. When you integrate awareness, substitution, and a supportive environment with a reliance on Allah and self-forgiveness, you create a holistic framework for lasting transformation. You begin to see your struggles not as chains, but as teachers. You begin to understand that your soul is being trained, your character being tested, and your potential being forged into something resilient and enduring. So when you falter, do not despair. When the habit returns, do not give in to hopelessness. Stand firm in your awareness. Apply what you have learned about replacement and environment, and lean on Allah with sincerity. Spiritual resilience transforms setbacks into stepping stones, failures into lessons, and persistence into power. In the end, breaking a bad habit is not about never falling. It is about never staying down. Your strength is measured not by the absence of struggle, but by the courage to rise again and again, guided by awareness, intention, and divine support. The habit may test you, but your soul is stronger. And every time you return, every time you choose growth over comfort, you take one more step toward the person Allah designed you to be. The journey is arduous, but every struggle is a step toward freedom, every relapse a chance for renewal, and every moment of persistence a victory of the soul.